President.
The senior senator from Delaware.
Madam President, the Speaker who's just finished speaking before he leaves the floor, he and I share the same initials, TC. And in this case, we share the same views on an important issue. And it's great to have the TCs, the Tango Charlies, speaking from the same hymn book. Madam President, on a lighter note, some of the conversation here today is pretty serious, and this is a serious matter, but I want to tell you just maybe a little bit lighter. I'm reminded today of the words of Harry Truman, our former president. He used to say that the only thing new in the world is the history we forgot or never learned. The only thing new in the world is the history we forgot or never learned. And I want to take, if you will, as presiding officer knows, every Tuesday we have our caucus lunch. Republicans have theirs. Unfortunately, we don't dine together enough. But at our caucus lunch, we have like a history moment or a history minute, maybe a minute or two. It's always one of the highlights, frankly, of the time we spend together. And I want to just look back a little bit in time as we take up today an issue that's right before us. As it turns out, the first Swedes and Finns, Madam President, came to America about 384 years ago. They sailed from a place called Kalmar, Sweden. And at the time, as we've heard from others who've spoken, Sweden and Finland were the same country. There was no Finland. All the Finns lived in Sweden. And they continued to live in Sweden for a good long time. And I think Swedish lived, it's 1809. I think in 1809, the Swedish rule over Finland officially came to an end, and Finland separated from Sweden. But when the two ships, the Kalmar Nickel and the Fogelgrip, set sail from what was then Sweden, across the Atlantic Ocean toward the Western Hemisphere, they getting close to land and ended up sailing north into what later would become the Delaware Bay, sail further north into what would become the more narrow channel, the Delaware River. And they continued to sail, didn't go up as far as what is now Philadelphia, but they came across an uncharted river that went to the west off of, it's kind of a left turn off of the Delaware River to the west. And they sailed for about a mile, maybe a mile and a half. And they decided that they would put down their anchors. A bunch of rocks, big rocks along the sides of that river. Put down their anchors and declared that spot the colony of New Sweden. It's what is now Wilmington, Delaware, colony of New Sweden. And they raised their flag and said, this is where we're going to make our stand. That was I think maybe the first European, at least in my state, the first European colony that was created, and it was created later and taken over by, I think, by the Dutch and then by maybe the British. But initially, it was the Swedes and the Finns who colonized that spot. Delaware has one of the newest national parks in America, and it's a different kind of national park that tells the story of Delaware's involvement in the earlier history of the settlement of our country, leading up to the ratification of the Constitution on December 7, 1787, which took place in Dover, Delaware, our state capital. And Delaware became the first state for one whole week. Madam President, we were the entire United States of America. And then we opened it up and fled in Maryland and Pennsylvania, and originally there 47 or so more, including Wisconsin. And I think for the most part, it's turned out pretty well. We have had some bumps in the road, as the presiding officer knows. But the colony of New Sweden was in place for probably about 20 to 25 years. And then the Dutch took over, and then the British sort of took over the region in 1664. When the Dutch created the colony of New Sweden in what is now Wilmington, Delaware, they also built a church. And they built what is now known as Old Swedes Church. We've got a lot of churches in this country, a lot of different faiths. And Old Swedes Church is believed to be maybe the longest continuously serving church in America. How's that for history? And as part of our national park that we created, something I worked on for years, we created in a decade or two ago, Old Swedes Church, and it's still there. Still doing the Lord's work. This is Beautiful, beautiful picture. This is the Kalmar Nickel at full sail. This is one of the two ships that brought the Swedes and Finns to America, 384 years ago. This is the Swedish flag over here, and this is the Delaware flag over here. The Kalmar Nickel literally has a permanent place to be maintained and anchored along the Christina River. And when I went to the Biden station this morning to catch the train to come down here, as I do most mornings, Madam President. If I had just not gotten on the train and had headed downriver about a mile, I would have come to this ship, right on the Christina River. It's sailed many places around the world. It's really the ship that represents our state, which used to be the colony of New Sweden. We all get to meet people from different places around the world. And I've been privileged to meet a lot of Swedish Americans. And it turns out there are more Swedish Americans than there are Swedes in Sweden. Let me say that again. There are now more Swedish Americans than there are Swedes in Sweden. There's a bunch of them. And they contribute to our country and certainly to our state in many different ways. I work a lot in economic development, I always have as governor and even now. And some of the finest business people I've ever met are Swedes, or Swedish extraction. A funny story, if I could, Madam President. Everybody, 25 years, the King and Queen of Sweden come to revisit the colony of New Sweden. We have a big celebration for a couple of days right along the banks of this river, the Christina River, which, by the way, the Christina River, all those years ago when the first Swedes and Finns came ashore, they named the Christina River after their child queen, who at the time was, you won't believe it, 12 years old. 12 years, imagine peaking at the age of 12 and becoming a queen or a king. And Queen Christina, that river is named after her. I like to, whenever I run into women who name Christina, I tell them that their heritage, their name actually goes back to all those years when the first Swedes and Finns came here and helped to settle our country. Anyway, once every 25 years, the King and Queen of Sweden come to visit us. And in 2013, King Carl the 16th and Queen Sylvia of Sweden came to Delaware for several days. We had a huge celebration on the banks of the Christina River. And I had the privilege of sitting next to the Queen during dinner. This big banquet, hundreds of people, black tie, beautiful evening, great music, wonderful speeches. And she and I had just a delightful time talking over dinner. And I said to her, we talked about the arts. And I like films, and I believe the presiding officer is a big film buff. And one of our early favorite directors, Ingmar Bergman, Sweden, great films for many years. And we talked about his films and the films that actually had touched our lives and helped shape our lives. And we talked about music. We talked about music. And I said to the Queen of Sweden, I said, I've always heard, I don't know where I've gotten this, Madam, Your Highness, I don't know where I got this, but for some reason I make a connection between you and the singing group ABBA. Now, Ingmar Bergman is one of the greatest film directors of all time. ABBA, Swedish swinging group, is I think maybe the top-selling singing group in the history of the world. And they actually still record from time to time. But anyway, I said to Queen Sylvia, I said, is there a connection between ABBA and you and your husband? Is there? She said, well, there is. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, the night before we were married in Sweden, she said there was a huge celebration and a concert, outdoor concert with tens of thousands of people. And she said the headlining group for the concert was ABBA. They said, no kidding. And I said, did they sing? And she said, that was the night they debuted the song Dancing Queen. Maybe one of the best pop songs I've ever heard. And I won't say that we sat there and hummed a few bars, but maybe we did. And but we had a lot in common with the Swedes and the Finns. We share a lot of likes and really very, very much appreciation, if you will, of the arts, including film and including music. We're a country that prides herself on our free enterprise system, but we have to do it with a heart. So do the Swedes. And this is, you look up the term no-brainer, and it's not, you won't find it in a dictionary. But if you look up a term no-brainer, Madam President, it would say, this vote today, and the issue that's before us. Why in God's name wouldn't we want the Swedes and Finns to join us together? Lisa Rochester's our congresswoman. We have only one. She's our congresswoman from Delaware. She has a saying. She talks about sticks tied together can't be broken. Sticks tied together can't be. One stick, you're going to break it. Tie a bunch of them together, you can't break them. And the same is true here. The same is true here. And the admission of Finland, the admission of Sweden into to NATO makes that band of sticks even stronger and that much harder to break. I'm just delighted that we have an issue that in the time that there's been a fair amount of dissension in these halls. I'm delighted that we have something that I think we can all, pretty much, almost all, agree on. This is a good thing. It's going to be good for our country. It's going to be good for Sweden. It's going to be good for Finland. And I think it's going to be good for our planet. And those of us who are privileged to live in what used to be the colony of New Sweden couldn't be happier. And we're delighted to celebrate. I would just say to anybody listening, say, well, you know, I've never been to a national park in Delaware. Well, we want you to know that we have one, and it's a great one, from one end of the state to the other. And if you start up north, get off the train, walk about a mile, you'll be at what used to be the home place, the starting place of the colony of New Sweden. With that, Madam President, I think I've done enough damage here today, and thank you for the time to speak. And I think we're going to yield to a fellow from Alaska, who is a man, I don't know that he spent a lot of time in ships or boats. I spent a few years in a Navy guy, but Marine, they spend a lot of time. They spend a lot of time at sea. They take rides in our boats. So we're on the same team. I like to say different uniforms to Simsalem, but same team. And on this one, we're on the same page, and it's great to be there. Thank you. I yield.
Madam President.